Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. So today we're here with Jamie Aarons. So Jamie, would you like to tell everyone about yourself?
Hi folks, I'm Jamie Aarons. I have been invited along to join Lily on one of her favourite hills, and we got to know each other because I am the record holder for the fastest self-propelled continuous Munro round. And while Benin might not be a Munro, I think Lily is quickly proving that it still requires a fair whack of energy. But it's a beautiful, beautiful after work evening. Good to get out.
Yeah. Okay, so Jamie, you're not from Scotland, so how did you get to Scotland, and what was the first Scottish hill that you've ever climbed, I guess?
Ooh, so starting with the easy question. So you're right, I'm originally from California in the States. I left California when I was 17 to go to uni. Then I moved to Scotland in 2005, so 20 years ago now. Moved with my partner Andy, recognizing that Scotland was has amazing potential for outdoor activities, and he had really fond memories of coming to Scotland to go ice climbing when he was younger. So we thought we'd move here for a year or two, check out the outdoor scene, and here we are 20 years later, still hiking up Scottish hills. And yeah, it's always sunny like this, so that's why we decided to stay.
So have you always been into running or hill
Definitely
climbing?
not. I grew up as a competitive swimmer, and I think, at least where I came from, swimmers were almost inherently not runners.
Yeah.
I remember if I had to run, it was like a punishment.
Yeah.
It just felt like the hardest part of training was being forced to do a mile run or something. And I think even now, I've done a lot of long distance running and multi-day events and stuff, but running itself still doesn't feel like it's something that comes naturally to me.
Yeah.
I still wouldn't consider myself a runner. I'm a person who runs.
Yeah.
But I guess initially I got into running because it was free, and I wanted to be healthy, and kind of had challenged myself that I wanted to run a marathon. I think I'd set it as before I turned 30, I wanted to run a marathon. And I was living in New York City at the time. So I decided to enter the New York Marathon, which was awesome. And I trained really hard and I managed it, and kind of felt like I'd ticked that box and didn't have any great desire to keep running necessarily after that. But then after that was when we moved to Scotland, and I fell into a bad crowd that introduced me to trail running.
Yeah.
And it was being able to, I guess, combine my love of being outside with that sort of the physical and mental health and well-being that running gave me, and the social side massively as well. Running to me is really a social event and a mental health event. Yeah. And then aside from that, it's obviously good for your physical health. So, and once I got into trail running, that for me was really right, actually, I do actually enjoy this. Yes. And it's a group of people out in nature, met new friends, and that kind of just became my social life, was going out for long runs and stuff.
Yes. So see with this, hello. Hi. So see with this, you getting into running. Yeah. What was the first hill in Scotland that you've ever ran up? What was the first Munro maybe?
I'm not sure if I've ever actually run up a hill, but the first Munro I ever did was Ben Lomond. Yes. It was also, so that was, I don't even know that I would have known what a Munro was at that point. I must have just moved to Scotland, and a friend from England came to visit, so we went up that hill. And then, after that, I always just liked being outside. I liked being active. And then it wasn't until 2013, so Andy and I had already lived here for 8 years, so 7 and a bit years, when we spent Hogmanay on Knoydart.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
And we were staying in the bothy there, and it must have been the must have been the 1st or 2nd of January. We had, hiked a couple of hills that happened to be Munros.
Yes.
And when we got back to the bothy, Andy made some comments about how he wondered if it was possible to do them all in a year.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I knew what Munros were by then, but I had no idea how many there were, had no idea if what he was asking was even remotely feasible.
Yeah.
But I'm like a magpie for a shiny idea. And I was like, ooh, I don't know. But now that you've said it, maybe we have to.
Yes.
We have to try. Hiya.
Hi.
And at that point, he pointed out that we had done, I guess, two or all 3 of the Munros on Noidart. We did kind of on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, whatever of January that year in absolutely gross weather.
Yeah.
And his concept was basically, well, we've done 3 of the most remote ones in the country in grim weather.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can just do all the rest of them now in a year. So yeah, it was definitely nothing that was planned. We got home from that trip and just immediately started to do research.
Yes.
Found out there were 282 of them, which we didn't know before. Made a list. And then really it was just relentless. Every weekend, because we were both working full time, every weekend we would just try and get as much done as we could.
Yeah.
And it would be like, checking forecasts, checking avalanche forecasts. That year, 2013, had a really, really late snowfall. So we were having to check avalanche forecasts like well into April.
Wow.
I think possibly almost into May.
Mm-hmm.
Making decisions on like the Thursday night, or even sometimes as we were driving on the Friday, of where we were going to try and go that weekend to get as much done as we could. So, and that to me, it was relentless, but it was something clearly challenging, but a challenge we did together. Andy's claim to fame is that almost exclusively, I was a very, very, I was going to say little help. I think it was of no help for the navigation. He did all of the navigation that whole year, strictly with maps and compasses.
Yes.
So no GPS. I mean, we didn't have GPS at that point. So no GPS, no smartphones, none of the technology that we've got now, besides obviously checking all the forecasts and things beforehand. But while we were out on the hill, it was a very, very traditional approach.
Yes.
And I guess for me, as you've probably heard me say before, and you know yourself, like the fact Munros, you don't get them anywhere else in the world.
Yes, exactly.
Like a Munro is a Scottish classification of hill. And I guess as someone who's an import to here, there was something kind of cool about feeling really connected to Scotland by these very, specifically Scottish mountains.
Yes. So Jamie, after doing your year round, how did the idea come about to, I guess, just do as fast as you could, or maybe even go for the record? So how did that come around?
So I guess after the round that Andy and I did in a year, I actually had done a second round chaperoning our Spanish rescue dogs, Pirate and Hope, who you have met.
Yes.
So that one was at a little bit more of a leisurely pace. That took a couple of years. And then, I guess I was still just really active and was doing lots of long distance running and multi-day adventures and stuff, and just loved being outside. And then in 2020, I was kind of aware of Donnie Campbell when he was doing his self-propelled round. We have lots of friends in common, and I guess I knew he was doing that round, and I was in total awe, and also just thought it was totally bonkers, and didn't really, I shouldn't say I didn't pay attention to it, but I wasn't like obsessively following a dot or anything like that. I was intrigued, but thought it was nuts. And Donnie is, he's just super fit, super fast, like elite athlete. And I was like, more power to him. That's awesome. And it didn't really cross my mind that it was something that I would ever want to do. And then months later, I heard him being interviewed by a really good friend of mine, actually, someone who had been instrumental in getting me into trail running.
Yes.
And during that interview, Donnie was talking about the rounds, and some of the things he said kind of suddenly started to plant a seed in me that maybe, what I call the glimmer of maybe, that it's a maybe, not about the record, but maybe it was the sort of challenge that appealed to me, and that actually there were some things that I could play to my strengths, and it would give me an opportunity to spend lots of time outside, and there were lots and lots of logistics potentially involved. And I really liked the idea of having an adventure that required lots of planning and commitment. And at the time, I dropped my friend John a text message to the person who'd been doing the interview. And I just said, I've kind of got a seed planted now of this idea. And John messaged me back right away. He was always incredibly supportive. And he just said, you should go for it. And I didn't mention it to anyone else. I didn't say anything to anyone. And then sadly, John tragically died quite unexpectedly, and in January of the following year. And his death had a real impact on me. And I think because he'd been so instrumental in getting me into trail running and stuff, and he'd been so supportive of my silly idea that I should go for it. And I'd let that seed kind of fester about maybe I could do something like this. I'd mentioned it to my friend Jenny, and you've heard me say Jenny is a silly idea enabler. And Jenny also said, do you know what? Yeah, you should totally go for something like that. And I'll be here to support you. And we then spent 2 years planning, and not just Jenny and me, but lots of other friends as well. And just trying to make a route that was just mine, and trying to work out all the logistics and all the planning, and it just kind of went from there.
So see, with the planning, were you like, I'm guessing, I'm not sure if you were or not, but like, are you like a big spreadsheets person, or like, are you just like more of a go with the flow type of person, or like, what did you like, how did you plan it, I guess?
I think you're on to me. I do love a spreadsheet. I love post-it notes. I love lists. We had so many lists. I'll have to show you one day, because I saved most of them. We had like the lists of the farms and the estates and the land that we needed permission from for Andy to be able to drive the support vehicle. We had lists of all the foods. We had lists of all the grid references. And everything went onto a massive spreadsheet, which was basically what we were working off of then once I finally got started. And I enjoy all that stuff. And I guess that was part of it, was that while doing the round was obviously the kind of culmination of all of that planning. The planning in and of itself was a challenge that I really loved. It's not for everyone, but it suited me. I really loved it. And poring over maps and stuff for years, and like we had these huge maps out on our dining table, and it was sort of like a rule that every time you walked by the map, if you had an idea of a new way we might be able to check out, there was like a stack of post-it notes, so you put a post-it note on the map, and then that was where I either needed to go and recce or look at photos or speak to people maybe who knew those hills well, that sort of thing. And that's ultimately how we figured out what the route was going to be.
So see, with like all the spreadsheeting and stuff, I don't know if that's a word, but
it is now.
With that, so did you like track the weather of like the rounds, or like do you think your like previous rounds had like helped the the logistics of doing a fast one?
That's a super good question. So what I did do was I looked up in the almanac of the like weather history in Scotland, and I think that April is statistically the driest month in Scotland, but I wanted as many hours of daylight as I could get. And that's why I started at the end of May. And also I wanted to balance it with school holidays, so that, because, I had a lot of road biking to do to get between each of the Munros, and I wanted to not have, I wanted as little traffic on the roads as possible. So I was trying to get done before school holidays were really like totally in full throw. I had an unseasonably hot start, and it was super dry, and like burns that I should have been able to get water out of were dry, and I was really, really dehydrated, and then I got really sunburnt, which as a Californian is just embarrassing. But then equally we had massive thunderstorms, and there were landslides, and I had to change my route unexpectedly on the fly, because I couldn't cross some of the water that I intended to cross, and because it wasn't safe or it just literally wasn't possible.
Yeah.
So I did need to have some flexibility and creativity as I was going because of the weather as well.
So I know you've been asked this question like a million times, but I'm going to word it a bit differently. So say you're like only allowed to climb one mountain like ever again for the rest of your life. Which one would it be and why?
Fair enough. So not my favorite hill, but the morbid hill question. I like it. Yeah, you're right. I am asked about my favorite hill quite a lot. And actually that's really difficult to answer because my favorite things are very context dependent.
Yes.
So some of my best experiences have been on hills that maybe aren't particularly exciting in and of themselves, but the people and the weather and the views and all of that has an impact. But if I could only do one more Munro ever in my life, for sentimental reasons, it would be Ben Lomond.
Okay.
Ben Lomond was my first ever Munro before I even knew what a Munro was.
Yes. Me too.
It was the first Munro the Fluffs did as part of their round. It was the last Munro that Andy and I did as part of our Munros in a year round. And it's the closest to where we live, so it's definitely the Munro I've done the most as well.
One of the best things about Ben Lomond as well, in my opinion, is like you can kind of vary it because the ptarmigan, although it isn't like mega scramble, you could kind of make it more of a scramble if you wanted to. And like you've got the tourist track if you just want like a quicker by Munro standards, like day out type of thing.
Totally.
So that's like my favourite part about Ben Lomond. And to be honest, if I was asked, I'd maybe go the same.
Nice. Well, we'll do it together then.
Yes, we should.
And also it's got a great honesty tuck shop at the foot of Ptarmigan.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, you can get a wee cake at the bottom as well.
Me and Dad were there with some friends and they ended up buying us rolls and some other like sweets, I think, as well. Nice. It was amazing.
Excellent.
Yes. Okay, Jamie, so I think we are going to leave it at that. But before we go, I do just want to say this is not the end that you'll be seeing of Jamie Aarons. So
despite the morbid hill question.
So you will be seeing her again because we will be doing a part 2 where her partner Andy Taylor will also be there. So the part 2 will be more about the in-depth of her like entire round rather than just the before it, and you will also get to hear some amazing behind the scenes stuff from Andy, who is Jamie's partner and a lovely guy. So yeah, so thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye folks.